So welcome. Today we are doing a workshop that is all about embedding AI agents, specifically the AI agents that you make on MindStudio. There are a couple of concepts that we're going to be covering today. The first is a feature that's really cool, allows for you to remove the kind of MindStudio Chrome and create a subdomain for your AI agent. It's it's not exactly embedding, but it is related to embedding agents. It is related to kind of creating a website for your agent. So I thought I'd include it here because it's a very simple process and demo. Um, Next, after that, we're gonna look into how you can use what we call guest access to create a really easy to use embed code that you can use inside of your website builders. And then I'm gonna quickly talk about um, how to sort create kind of memberships on your website. This is not specifically, MindStudio related, but it's important to cover this concept in order to show you how to use the other feature, which is called assigned URL. We'll be explaining what all of that means, and it sort of progresses in levels of complexity. In other words, like the subdomain is the simplest, the simple embed, still very simple. And then obviously like creating a memberships website and creating these signed URLs are a little bit more technical. But if you have been following along with our webinars about HTTP requests and webhooks, you're going to find that a lot of those lessons also apply to creating these signed URLs for your own website. So, and I have demos for all this stuff. So the first thing we're going to talk through is subdomains. I don't have a slide for this, but I do have an agent that I've built here. This is a mortgage calculator. And when I publish and use this agent, we get this really nice vibe coded web page. That's a very simple mortgage calculator. You put in, some values. So if you're buying a, $500,000 house with a 20% down payment and a 5% interest rate, you can include all these things and find your estimated monthly payment. And then it saves that calculation and uses that to create kind of a financial snapshot and look for good places to live. Now, this is just a demo. I didn't, I'm not pinging Zillow or anything. This is just an agent output. But the reason why I'm showing you this is because we have this MindStudio Chrome here at the top. Is this mortgage calculator. If you want to share this with users, you'd take this link and you'd click on the, let's see here, you'd click on invite users, and that would allow you to have this invite link for people to come and use your agent. But let's imagine that you just wanted to share this via a simple link and allow for anyone to use the agent, right? And also not have this extra stuff at the top that could potentially lead them to a MindStudio workspace, right? Well, the way that we accomplish this is really simple. We're going to use this feature called subdomains, which is a feature that launched, I believe, last week or a couple weeks ago. And the way it works is you'll go into your settings and under access, you'll want to make your access public, right? When you do that, you have this option that determines the cost responsibility. One thing to keep in mind when using subdomains is that you're responsible for the usage costs of that agent. So if you share that agent with somebody else and they end up using it and use up $1,000 of usage, you're getting billed for that, not the actual person using the agent or the group of people using the agents. So we can change this from requester, which would normally mean the person using it, to agent owner, which would mean us. And that gives us several other options. So when you uh, when you want to create this subdomain, you'll want to enable anonymous access. This is a combination of features. So anonymous access allows anyone to open up the AI agent and use it without creating a MindStudio account. And so when you enable it, we now are allowing anyone with the link to use this agent. And then secondarily, we can create a subdomain. And a subdomain is essentially a special link that you get to name and customize. And then at the end, you get a link that you can share with anyone. So in this case, I'm going to call this my mortgage calc dot msagent.ai. We save this, and now we have a subdomain that we can go to in a browser tab, and we can share this link with anyone, right? Oh, 1 second. I need to publish the agent. There we go. Okay, let's refresh the page. And so now we have this unique link that we have customized, and you'll notice that there's no MindStudio branding, right? This is a single page application, fully branded to whatever, however you have styled it when you've been, let's say vibe coding a front end interface or whatever you'd like, right? And we can fill this out, let's put in all of this stuff. We'll make this 20% down payment, interest rate 5%, loan term 30 years, whatever. Save the calculation. It takes that information and outputs something else, and folks can use this. But the important part is you now have this link that anybody can use, right? So it makes it really useful for sharing these. I hesitate to say white labeled, but white label adjacent AI agents with others, right? And what's super useful about this is you can also take this link and add that link to your website in, a members only space, and they open it up and it's its own application. It's not necessarily embedded within the web page that you're building. You're just linking directly to the agent itself. Now keep in mind, this is not like a members only thing, right? When you share this, anybody can open it and access it. So if I were to share this agent in the chat, which I'm not going to do, but if I were, everybody here could open this up and view it, and there's no barrier, like it's not part of like a members site. So yeah, super useful. Any questions about subdomains while we're here? Because I just wanted to demo this feature. Very easy to set up, very easy to use. I see if people are charged, how does that happen? So you are actually billed for the use of this agent. Oh yeah, can you put a max spend on the agent? Yeah, that's actually a really good question related to this. So same inside of the settings here, you set up the anonymous access, you take responsibility for all of the costs, and you can actually set up usage limits for this agent. So you can set up a monthly budget per user. So let's say you only want to allow each individual user to use max like $5 a month, right? And you'll be able to see all of the people that have accessed this agent. Now keep in mind, because it's anonymous access, if there's a new session, that's considered a new user, right? So there are still these trade-offs and considerations you have to make. And then you can also add a lifetime budget. So the total amount that the agent is allowed to spend until you raise it or remove the limit, right? So let's say I only wanted this agent to spend a maximum of $10. It would then tell you how much you've spent on the agent, and then you can increase it as you move forward. So those are both of your options for determining the amount of spend for this particular agent. Once the usage limit is hit, I believe you get notified via email, but maybe that's not the case. So you may need to just check up on the agent itself, and the agent will just not continue running. It'll encounter an error. So it is definitely something that you want to monitor. Um, And then let me just look through the questions here in the chat. Can this subdomain functionality be applied when the requester option is enabled? No, it cannot, because there's no way for you to bill that person and pass through costs from MindStudio. So you're taking responsibility for the usage of that agent, no matter who uses the agent, and you need to figure out on your website how much that is worth to your end user. What about agents that use the browser extension? So this doesn't really apply. I mean, the usage limits definitely apply to the browser extension, but the subdomain, is not really relevant to the browser extension. So you could still set this lifetime budget for agents on the browser extension, and it'll just stop working once it reaches that cap. Would anyone be able to, with a MindStudio account, be able to see and access the agent? Yeah, so that's part of this anonymous access. Um, People can use it with or without an account. So if you have this off, you're requiring a MindStudio account in order to uh, access the agent. But if you have this turned on, anybody can access it without needing a MindStudio account. And if you are signed into MindStudio, it'll still track that you are signed into MindStudio. If I want to give access after something happens, like a lead collected, how can I make sure the agent is not shared freely afterwards? Yeah, so we're going to talk about this in just a second because this is just one way of sharing the agents. But for a solution like that, you may want to set up an actual embed on your website, leveraging this signed URLs feature. Okay. Yeah, so you don't have to worry about the configuration of the subdomain. All of it will be configured to this address here, msagent.ai. Um, you just have to set up what that subdomain actually is, and eventually there may be more options here. Um, but for now, this is a relatively new feature. Okay, I see a lot of questions. I'm gonna continue, maybe feel free to like pin your questions or like write them down. I'm gonna continue moving forward because this is actually not what we should be spending most of our time on. Even though it is a very cool feature, I want to actually show you how to get an AI agent on a website that you build, right? So let's go ahead and do that. I have a couple of other agents here, and these agents, they don't really do anything. They're just a very simple chat bot. Um, it looks something like this when you open it up. Oh, come on, open up. Let me refresh the page here and open the draft agent. It just looks like this. So this is using a signed URL, which we'll talk about in a second, but we're actually going to just look at the simple embed here. So let's clear all of this data out. So I have the same agent here, just a simple chat bot, nothing crazy about it. I'm not doing anything in the workflow because the point is how to actually embed this on a website. Let me clean up my tabs here and open up my website page. So here I have a sample website that I am building in Webflow, right? And this website has a bunch of different pages. I have also set this website up with a service called Memberstack that allows me to easily create Google logins or Apple logins and actually track members on my website. It's a very useful no-code, low-code tool that enables this. Although, website your mileage may vary, and websites all kind of have a different approach to how they handle members and login and all of those things. So I'm just showing you how I got this to work inside of Webflow. And on this website, there are a couple of pages. There is the home page. Actually, let's open this up here. Let's open this up in a new tab. Oops, hold on one second. I opened the wrong link. Okay. So on this page, there are a couple of other pages, right? There's a bunch of stuff I didn't set up. This is all just templated stuff. But I made this agents page, and one of them showcases a simple embed, and one of them showcases a signed URL. And if we view this agent, you will be able to see that the agent itself is loading here. Now it says request denied because in my agent, I disabled guest access. And so the way that this works, step by step, we'll go ahead and create a new page where I'm going to just make a copy of this guest access embed, and we'll create that page. And you have this, however you set up, you're going to find an way to add an embed on your website. In Webflow, it's called code embed. It might look different on different websites. And this is the code embed element on the Webflow site. When you add this code embed, you basically add in uh, an embed code that you've used across, all kinds of other different websites. And so the configuration inside of your MindStudio agent is very similar. You can ignore this signed URL embedding and simply click on Enable Guest Access. And then you get this embed code that you can copy and then paste into this custom code here, right? So once we save that, we can, maybe we change our width to 100%. You can modify the styles of this. Say we want our height to be 600, we can save and close. And now we can see that the embed is live on our website, right? So when we publish this page, now anyone can access our uh, our agent on our website. So if you see here, we have our agent, it's embedded. I don't have any sort of styling on this. Maybe I'll add a border, and maybe we'll make this have some rounded corners. Let's see here, let's have 12 pixel rounded corners, and we'll just add some color, a light gray color here. So again, this is set up a little differently in each website builder, but generally the process is the same. You find that embed element, you add that to your website builder, and then you copy and paste the embed code that is provided when you enable guest embedding. And what that ends up looking like, and you may still have to like modify the size of the embed and all of that stuff. What that ends up looking like is this agent, which is now embedded into our page here. And we can start typing with it and chatting with it, doing whatever we want, doing whatever the agent does, right? Now, when you use this embed code, you will start to see these managed users, everyone that has ever accessed your page. And because I've opened the page up 5 different times between the edit page and the live page, we have 5 guest users here. Now, what that actually tells us is that is actually one of the drawbacks of using this method in your website, right? Because what that actually means is that we don't have this history persisting between sessions, right? So if I say, tell me a story, and I start a new run here, let's let this finish, and we start a new run, and I say write a blog post about dogs. It'll start writing a blog post about dogs, and we use this like several times, right? But if I refresh the page, I'm now a new guest user and my history is gone, right? And so this is one of the key issues that signed URLs fixes, right? Um, so any questions on this? We're going to talk about signed URLs. We're going to talk about, building you know, getting members and login on your website so that you get these unique member IDs and things like that in just a second. But any questions about this very simple embed?
What subscription tier is required for each of the embedding options we're going to see today?
On MindStudio, all of this entire embedding tab, so guest access as well as signed URLs are available on the Pro plan of MindStudio.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Louis,
Any other questions? Yeah.
yes, how is this different from the old simple embed?
So
From-
this is in effect the old simple embed.
Ah, it's the
Yeah.
same thing. So
It's the same thing and it has the same problems, but it is
okay,
slightly more it's slightly more secure than the previous version of the embed
okay,
because
great.
it's yeah, no
Mm,
problem. Now much more secure actually than the previous embed. You don't have those same security issues that you did with the original version of embedding. Um,
awesome.
yeah. So if this is something that you're interested in using, um, you don't care about like tying this to like members on your website. A good strategy for this is if you don't care about saving that history, it's just mainly used for like lead gen or something like that. Um, you can simply embed this on your website, modify the the stylings, and you're good to go, right? Um, let's see here. Any idea how to embed iframe into a lovable site by prompt? Yeah, so I with Lovable, I think I haven't used their interface in a while, but that's a vibe coding interface. And so what you can basically provide it is say just using a prompt, say, please embed this iframe into my site underneath just tell it where you want it, and then input it, and then you can continue chatting with it to actually style the iframe for you. Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the next part of our agenda here. We went through our subdomains, we went through how to set up a simple embed. Now, what we're going to talk about is website memberships, and I'm going to show you how I set up my membership website on Webflow using just on this demo website. So there is this platform called Memberstack, and on Memberstack, you sign up for an account. They allow you, I think they have a trial version of it. So that's what I'm using. You basically, they have a pretty easy step-by-step process, but you essentially copy this code into your Webflow website, and there's a nice video kind of on how to do it. You then make sure that your website has a sign up form. They have a bunch of components. I'm not going to dive deep into this, but what I am going to show you is how this works in practice. So if I go back to my home page, what happens here is if we go to agents and I click on my simple embed, one second here. Oh, actually, I have this set up on the other agent page. Um, if we click on view the agent here, you'll notice that you can view this agent and it's tied to my specific username. So on Memberstack, I can see all of the members here, and if I delete myself, my sign in here, confirm and delete, and we reload this page, you'll now notice that there should be no member associated with this Memberstack page. So let me go ahead and publish this one more time. we'll go into the signed URLs page. And when somebody logs in for the first time, they see a preview. And if they try and hover over this, they are prompted to log in and sign up to our site. We can set up different tiers. But all of this is done with Memberstack, you know. Webflow doesn't quite have tools like this, or maybe they do. This is just how I've done it. But what that gets us is a unique user ID. And that's the reason why I bring this up, is if we go to this page here, there you go. You see, I don't have access to this page. This agent is members only. And when I click to log in and sign up, I can continue with Google, whatever, or, you know, email, password, whatever, however you set it up on your site. This creates an account, which you can now see in Memberstack. We've just created an account. And then when we go to this signed URLs, we can view the agent. And if I open it up in test mode, we see that that this signed in person has a membership ID that is tied to our website. That's going to be super important as you're using these signed URLs. Okay. Again, there are many ways to skin a cat. You may have a database somewhere that has these user IDs, but you're going to need to find a way to get access to a unique ID that identifies the user on your own website. And that's because as we start to look at signed URLs, really quick, I made a couple slides here. Simple embed. In your agent settings, enable guest access, copy the embed code. In your website builder, add the embed element and paste in the code. And then for signed URLs, the process is a little different. But you do want to make sure that you have some sort of login set up on your website so that you can get the user ID that is coming from your website. So let's quickly talk about signed URLs in general. I'll kind of explain what they are and how they work, and then I'll show you how it works in practice here. Signed URLs is like if you've ever interacted with a magic link on a website. It's a special link that gives you temporary and secure access to a file or a resource. In this case, that resource is the URL to the AI agent that is specifically tied to the user ID from your website, right? This looks like a normal link. It includes a unique signature and a bit of code that basically proves that it was created by us, right? It's not like spoofing the signature, and it's created every time that page loads up, right? We don't have to get too in the weeds here. All you need to know is it's kind of like a magic link. It's temporary and it's secure, right? And the reason we do this is because we have these managed users on, we'll bring this back in here and move our signed URL out. We have these managed users here, and each of these managed users is a user that has logged into our website. And that allows us to have that history persist in between sessions. So you can actually create these AI agents, embed them on your website, and then have the functionality work. People can look back on previous interactions every time they load up the page. And that's really, in addition to the additional layer of security, that's really like the key benefit of these signed URLs. So the way, okay, so we were just talking about that. Why do we even use these? They protect the private content, so the AI agent with your specific user's history. They allow your users to access the agent without needing to log into MindStudio. They only need to log into your website, and they expire automatically. So if somebody ends up getting a link and sharing it with someone else, it won't work because that signature has expired, right? And so they tend to be, just as an additional note, they're easier and safer than sending secret keys or anything like through your the front end of your browser, because as you remember last time we talked about HTTP requests, you never want to expose your API keys, and um, you may need to do that if you were building this all in the front end. So the way that these signed URLs work is you get a user ID from your website, wherever that user ID exists, right? You then need to send the user ID to a secure service. Sorry, let me just clear all the drawings here. You then need to send the user ID to a secure service. So this is like an, a server somewhere, or in this case, where I'll show you what that looks like in this case. You can use a no-code platforms like make.com in order to do this, but basically somewhere that is your account somewhere else that can send an HTTP request with your user ID, and using your MindStudio API key to get that unique URL, and then send that URL back to your website so that it knows what URL it needs to embed. I know this is a little more technical, but generally that's the way this works, right? It's kind of these three steps. Um, and you may think like, oh, why can't I just vibe code something for the front end to like generate this key, right? There, all of this requires like at least a little bit of code to get working. Um, and so when you start out, you might say, oh, I can just create an embed code that like does this all for me, like gets the key all in within the embed code. Um, I just want to make sure and point out that you never want to expose your API keys. And by doing, if you were to try to do this all in one step, you'd need to use the API key in the front end of your application, which is publicly accessible. And so that's why we have this additional step of only sending the user ID to this like secure, um, like off-site place in order to generate that URL so that none of that stuff is exposed. Um, so you basically use these services to like make an HTTP request, and that HTTP request is right here, right? Like this is the HTTP request. Some of these things should look familiar, like the method and the headers. And this is the key that you want to make sure you never expose to anybody, right? And this is and then you send it with some body content that includes the agent ID and the user ID that is being, sent over via the webhook from the website. And then you end up generating an iframe. You basically end up generating this URL, and you see at the very bottom it says XXXX because that's the signature, right? We send an HTTP request to MindStudio. It generates the signature that says, yes, you're allowed to grant temporary access to this person. Here's that final URL. And then we use that final URL in our embed. Okay. So in this example, we're using Memberstack and Webflow. Memberstack tracks, like we get all of that, we get that member ID from Memberstack, and that's stored in the front end in the Webflow website. And then we're going to be using make.com to actually make that HTTP request. And I'll show you what that looks like. It's going to then get our signed URL and then send that URL as a response back to Webflow, which is then used to embed the agent. And I
Hey,
know
Luis, I'm watching people's faces in this
I'm gonna pause right now. Um, I know this is a little more technical, but this is just the way it works. Um, so if you have questions, why don't we pause for questions and feel free to raise your hand.
Luis,
Yeah.
great job on this. And as expected, because this is of technical nature and because kind of presenting it in this way is hard for people to follow. I think lots of people are confused. And that's perfect. Don't worry about it. This is not to teach you step by step how to implement signed URLs. Okay, you can follow some instructions in a series of steps. If you can't do it, ask somebody to help. People that are mildly technical can get this done for you in a matter of whatever, half an hour to an hour maybe, right? So like you can get it done. I think the key point here for you is to understand that you can embed agents in any web page. That web page could be public, available to everyone. That web page can be protected behind a paywall, for example, only to certain members, only inside your organization, etc. And then there are these two modes by which you can embed it. One is this guest mode, which is just an iframe. That's fine for things that aren't sensitive and that don't have all kinds of sort of implications of things getting out of hand. And then there's the like, no, this is a mission critical application. It's got data we never want to leak out. Great. You got to ask one of your tech folks or one of your tech friends or come to Slack and say, hey, folks, I'm trying to do this. Can somebody help me do it? Okay. I don't expect the vast majority of you to do that on your own, even though you can, especially with your, friend ChatGPT and and
Yeah,
Claude and everything else. You
you
absolutely
can
can.
do it in an
Uh,
afternoon.
for sure, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure. But why? Ask a friend for help. Okay, does that make sense?
sure.
I didn't want you guys to like freak out of like, oh my God, you lost me half an hour ago. Please repeat all of that. So, yeah, please don't repeat all that. Luis, great job, by the way, of explaining it. There's a lot of stuff there. Are you going to show us how to implement it now? Is that what you were going to do?
I was, but let me pause for questions really quick because this is the natural step to pause and make sure, you know, it's we understand these steps so that when I show them to you, we know what we're looking at. No questions for now. Okay, great. Well, let me show you what this looks like. I built this out yesterday, um, and it just took, I'm not like a super, I'm pretty technical, but I'm not like extremely technical person. I'm not a developer, right? I used my friend ChatGPT to help me with a lot of this stuff. Um, and here's how it works. As we talked about, Memberstack gives you this user ID. And so we're going to be sending this user ID via a webhook to make.com. So the way that that works uh, in our site here, I have this element called code embed, and I had let me see if I can make this bigger. I had ChatGPT. I basically told it what I'm doing, and it helped me create the code needed for this. So what we want to do, and this is all happening within one embed code element. We need to do a couple of things. We have our embed, but before we set up the embed, we want it to send a webhook to make.com in order to generate the signed URL for us. So what that means is we have to go to make.com and set up a webhook address. So it's pretty easy. You click on uh, you click on like add new element and choose webhook, and then you can name this whatever you want. I called it signed URL, and it gives you this URL that is going to catch our webhook. So remember that webhooks are um, it's a way for us to um, like ping another service, and make is the service that we're pinging because we want to send it to a secure location, right? Like away from the front end of our website. So we send this webhook, and what the webhook sends is this data in it sends the member ID, and the member ID is, let's see where I can find it, is the member ID that we're pulling from our partner stack site here. So we're finding this member ID, sending it over. And then inside of make.com, we're actually running the HTTP request that is in this section here under signed URLs, where we say, okay, we know we've done HTTP requests before. We know that this is the endpoint. We know that it's a post method, and we have these headers, and we have this body, this JSON body that we want to send through. And so I just set that up inside of this HTTP node, our endpoint URL, our method, our different headers, the make has this thing called body type. So we just had it be raw and JSON because we know that it's JSON. And the actual that JSON that we're sending. In this case, it's one that contains the agent ID, so what agent we want to display, and the user ID. So what this looks like is every time that the page loads up, it sends this off, and then make catches it and gets this thing called member ID. So in this case, it's sample user 123. We're saying, hey, I want to use this in the next step when we make the HTTP request here. So you see the member ID. And then we want it to parse the response because we want to use it later down the make.com workflow. And make.com also has a really nice feature in their webhooks node, which allows us to send what's called a return response. And that basically completes the loop, saying we're sending something to make, doing an HTTP request, and sending it back to the website with some new information. And in this case, all we're sending back is this URL, right? So now we get that signed URL that's unique to the user back to our website. And then I asked ChatGPT to help me display this and embed it in a way that makes sense. So it made a function to, actually embed the iframe, made a way for us to send, this is the webhook here, where we add the webhook URL, gets this data back, and then embeds it all in our website. And what the end looks like is when you load up this page, let's hide the inspector here, is each time you refresh this page, let's check my Memberstack dashboard, or actually, sorry, let me just open up the member ID here. Each time we load this page up, we get my member ID on my own website as the user ID. And so you see I have one workflow here. I can then say, write a poem. And it's going to say, please tell me what kind of poem. I don't know, make it funny. And we can start a new one, and I'm going to say, write a product description. And it's for a mixer or audio. And it gives me, this other workflow. And unlike the simple embed, now when we refresh the page, we get a new run, but because we're signed into our website, we also have our run history on the left-hand panel for all of our other users to, or for us as a user of this service to use. So again, like Dimitri was saying, this is not it. It's more technical, but if you have a developer friend or you want to tap into our MindStudio Slack to implement this, it's really easy. It's really easy to implement, and even if you don't know how to code, it's really easy. You can get it done in an afternoon if you're trying to set up, some sort of subscription site or a members only site and allow people to maintain their user history between sessions here. I got through this a bit faster than I thought I was going to get through it. I realized that um, like there's a lot of value in doing it this way. Additional layers of security, persistence for the user. It's tied to your own user IDs, not MindStudio's user IDs. There's a lot of benefits to using these signed URLs, especially if you are trying to create some sort of SaaS product with the AI agents that you're building.
Yeah, again, for the vast majority of you guys, you will never need to do this.
Yeah.
Ever, ever. Okay. So Luis got to share with you just how nerdy he is.
Yeah, for the most part.
But you know, this is so mostly embedding should be a function of things you do as a business, not as an individual user, right? So if you're just like an individual builder of AI and you're building tools for yourself, it's hard to imagine many times that you would want to embed an AI agent in a tool that you're building yourself. Like you wanted to build some like dashboard, had a bunch of embedded agents, and that's cool, but that's not the thing. Embedding has a lot of value for businesses and various functions as they roll things out to either their employees or to their customers, kind of as the calculator that Luis was showing, and that's of great value. If there's no need to understand who's using your AI agent, just use that guest access thing. It's easy. It's one line of code, iframe, you're done. If you need deeper integration because your application that you're embedding this in, like again, you run a mortgage company and you want to integrate this with your backend database, and so you understand who's using these mortgage calculators, so then you could follow up with them, get more information, have them be able to do it over time. That's all great. The point is we support all that. And the people that would be implementing, obviously, if you don't understand this, it wouldn't be you. It would be, somebody you hired or your partner or whatever. So like
That's
what
right.
you need to know is that it's available for technical people. It's easy to do. Think about use cases if that's of value to you. And that's kind of at the level I think you should stay. Otherwise, you guys are going to get frustrated, pack your brains with all kinds of other things. I meet people that are studying gradient descent algorithms in order to be better prompters of AI models. I'm like, boy. uh, by the way, I'm guilty of sin. I got into computer programming when I was 14 and then decided I was going to go to college to study electrical engineering because that would make me a better programmer. These things have nothing to do with one another. And therefore, I've got an electrical engineering degree that I've never used, not a day of, but I still love code. Okay, so these things are not related. Do what you're good at. You guys are now, I see a bunch of familiar faces. You guys are now applied AI specialists. Okay, you can go out and build AI automations of all kinds of business processes that people are doing manually. Do that. There's infinite need for that, starting yesterday and continuing as far into the future as we can see. My advice: stay in your lane, and some things let other people do. Signed URLs, I propose mostly you let other people do. But if you just want to embed things, you got a way to do it. Does that make sense? You guys feel better?
But
Okay.
don't be afraid to push the limits. At the same time, find the
Exactly.
edges of your own. Like you know where your ledge is. So like
Yeah, you can
yeah.
be as nerdy as Luis.
Yeah. All right, thanks everyone. Have a
See you
great rest of
guys.
your day. Bye.
Thank you, Luis. Ciao.
Great. Thanks, Dimitri.